What's up, everybody? Welcome to Just a Little Salt, the podcast hosted by me, the Salty Paramedic. If you or anybody you know wants to be on the show, make sure to send a request to Just a Little Salt podcast at gmail.com. If you want to support the podcast and the work I'm doing for first responders, it's easy. Go on the saltyparamedic.com. Everything there, books, merch, resources, is built around this community. If you're looking for bonus episodes or content you're not going to hear anywhere else, make sure to join the Patreon. Go on patreon.com and search the Salty Paramedic. That support directly helps me keep bringing this content to life. Without further ado, thanks for listening. Here's the show. All right, what's up, everybody? We got a brand new episode of Just a Little Salt. Very special episode. I never would have dreamed I'd be doing this, but we're talking to the chief of the FDNY right now, Chief John Esposito. Got a lot of good questions lined up. I'm hoping to learn a lot. Thank you so much, Chief, for coming on, first of all. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, good morning. It's great to be here and looking forward to to a good interview. It's probably not as anywhere nearly as funny as some of your other guests and your normal show, but we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Well, I want to start off the podcast just on current events. So recently, a new fire commissioner was sworn in FDNY, and me personally, I'm at a smaller department in Kentucky, so we don't know what a fire commissioner was or is. So what's the biggest difference in duties compared to the fire commissioner of FDNY and the fire chief?
So in the FDNY, because we are so large, right? We have a total of 17,000 employees, 11,000 or so fire, 4,000 or so EMS, and the rest are our civilian staff. So in the FDNY, the chief of department we're broken up into different bureaus, and the chief of department oversees the Bureau of Fire Operations, the Bureau of EMS Operations, Bureau of Fire Prevention, Bureau of Training, and those are the bureaus that are responsible for firefighting, providing EMS care, emergency scenes. So the fire commissioner is the overall head of the agency. That's who I report to. But the fire commissioner is not the incident commander, is not out running fires or incidents. That's what I do, and that's what all my chiefs do. So, where the incident commander at larger fires, the commissioner and I will be there together, but that responsibility lies with me. In a lot of smaller departments, the fire chief is also responsible for the budgeting, buying new apparatus, and building and expanding facilities and firehouses. In the FDNY, because we're so big, those are all individual jobs. We have an assistant commissioner that's in charge of the budget. We have an assistant commissioner that oversees logistics, which is our fleet, our facilities. We have some people that their only job is to buy and fix our apparatus and oversee all of that. So all of these jobs get divided up, and the fire commissioner is the overall head of the agency, but it is the uniform chiefs that are responsible for running and commanding emergency scenes. So, Commissioner Bonsignor and I had worked together for many years. She had retired a few years ago, and we're very happy to have her back as our fire commissioner. She spent 31 years in the department. When we both were promoted to staff, I was the chief of special operations and she was the chief of EMS training. And we got great things ahead for the department with Commissioner Bonsignor. So looking forward to some continued greatness.
Yeah, that's awesome. When command staff like that can work together and get along well, you can truly accomplish great things. I've already learned a lot in the first 3 minutes. Like I said, I had no clue about commissioner duties and everything because that's just something we don't have at our small departments.
And that's the case for most. I would say most and maybe all fire departments in New York. That it's the head of the agency is either a commissioner or a board of fire commissioners,
Mm-hmm.
right? That runs the agency, and the fire chiefs uh, run the emergency scene.
Wow.
So like I don't have spending ability, right? When
Yeah.
if I come up with some great idea that we want to do that's going to cost money, after I'm convinced of it, I have to go down the hall and talk to the budget commissioner to see what money we have and where we have it and what we can do. So,
Oh wow.
that authority doesn't lie with me. And then even if we convince the fire commissioner and they're good with it, then we have to go to another city agency, the Office of Management and Budget, and see if we can get money from them for it. So we spend a lot of time, trying to convince people of what's important and what we want to do. And
Yeah.
then of course you have to prioritize and what's more important and what do you want to spend your time and money doing, because you very rarely can do everything that you would like to do.
Exactly. That's one thing because we go directly to the chief when we ask for spending money and everything. And being at my department 10 years, I've learned what works and what doesn't. In the end, if your station wants something, you got to really think it out what you're going to say. Um,
Yep.
I want to delve into just the your history. So, what got you into the fire service?
So years ago, my father was a volunteer firefighter. So I'm growing up, and you spend some time at the firehouse, and uh, it's fire trucks and the excitement, and it's all pretty cool. And then in junior high school, I read Dennis Smith's book, Report from Engine Company 82. About New York City. I grew up outside of the city, and you read that book, and I said that's what I want to do. Right? It was pretty cool, and set my goal on that, and a few years later, the test comes around, and you take the test, and you score high enough, and you get hired, and start down the road, and it's uh, it's been a great career. We've had a great time, and I would say it's been everything I ever thought it would be, and more. And we've had a lot of great days and a lot of unfortunately a lot of tragic days.
Yeah. It's interesting because I got into the fire service as well. My dad was a firefighter growing up, and I spent a lot of time around the firehouse. And I've got two older boys and a daughter, and my two boys they think it's cool, but they've never really expressed interest. But my daughter's 2 years old, and anytime she FaceTimes me while I'm at the station, first thing she says is, "I want to see fire truck." So she might be a future firefighter. My boys,
Yeah.
I don't think so, but it's interesting, how that all works out. Um, what's the earliest moment that you remember, like once you got on as a firefighter, thinking, okay, this job's for me?
I you get hired and you go to what we call proby school. At the time, it was 8 weeks. It's now 16 weeks. uh, and that we know that that's not real, right? That's not the real life. You're learning a lot, you're doing a lot. It's all a controlled environment, and then you get out to the firehouse, and you're getting along with the people you work with. You're enjoying it, and I just never had a doubt that I liked it and would be able to do it. And the more you got to meet people and spend time with the guys that people looked at and said, that guy's a good fireman, right? And what you learned is that what made them good at what they did is that they did the basics very well. And doing the basics very well, knowing where you're supposed to be, what your job is, what your position is for that particular day or tour, and making sure that you do that. That is what made them good, because it put them in the position uh, at the right time to, whether you're the engine chauffeur and your job is to get water, despite whatever obstacle you have, or you're the outside vent, and you got to get around the back of that house and get up a portable ladder in a window. just knowing your job and doing your job, and being very good at the basics. That's what I saw. As the guys that were considered very good firefighters, and you just strive to do that, whether it's the most basic task or a very difficult one. And as I got on and started doing the job, it's just never thought that it wasn't for me. And we all get those days that it just seems impossible, and you get those jobs where you're thinking about it for weeks after, and should have done this and could have done that, and you just continue to try to make yourself better as you keep going.
Yeah. I did a little bit of research on you before we did this. You rose through the ranks pretty quickly there. Before any of the ranks you've held, any of the titles, any of the big responsibility you've had, who were you as a young firefighter?
Uh, you know, Always showed up to work early. Uh, Always wanted to go and do stuff. Whatever it was. Wanted to. You didn't want to miss. You didn't want to miss a fire. You didn't want to take time off. You just wanted to learn and do. And you know, seem to. Guys tell me I always seem to have a smile on my face, and we have a saying, you're just happy to be here. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was. You get up every day, and seem to, whether you're working a day tour or a night tour, getting in the car at 3 in the afternoon to go to work, and you know you're happy. You're smiling, and you're going to work and to learn. And you walk in and you see see whose cars in the parking lot, and who you're working with, and whose name's
Mm-hmm.
on the board, and just looking to enjoy it and learn. But I you know I don't think in my younger days, um, you just couldn't wait to get to work, and when you're at work, you didn't want the tour to end.
Mm-hmm.
And you just felt like you were missing out when it was time to go home. Um, but yeah, just absolutely loved the job, and loved picking the brains of the guys that were good at it, and trying to continue to learn and know more.
That's now. Am I correct? You started in '91. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
'91.
1991.
So I'm sure you had many officers and mentors throughout your early career. Who was one officer or mentor that really truly shaped how you lead today?
So I was, fortunate that so in 1991, you got to remember a lot of those officers then were guys that had been around in the 70s. And one of the guys, a few of the guys that you had worked with were um, in those super busy places in the 70s, and just had a lot of experience, and you just loved hearing some of it. But the one of the officers that had the biggest impact on my career, I would work with a couple of years into my career. From He was one of our lieutenants in Squad 18. It was Billy McGinn. And Billy unfortunately died on September 11th. But he was the guy that you always wanted to work with, and just super calm, always learning, always talking, and he was the guy that you wanted to be. And it was no surprise, when you found out who, unfortunately, who was working on September 11th. That, and it kind of made sense, because he was, one of the guys that was always in the right place. A great leader. Cool and calm, and even when he was mad, didn't raise his voice. Didn't He'd get upset, but wouldn't raise his voice, and always about learning and making everybody better. And personally, just a huge loss. He was, as I got promoted, so he was one of my lieutenants when I was a firefighter, and you when you get promoted, you think that you destroyed your career because you get promoted out of a place that you really like, and you're doing something that maybe you don't really want to do. And I can remember talking to him saying, "Oh, Billy, what did I do? And he take it easy. You're gonna be all right. This is what we go through, and you're gonna find your place, and it's gonna work out." And that was the spring summer of 2001. And we know what happened a few months later. And then in January of 2002, as we have a large transfer order uh, to refill and transfer people into the permanent positions that that were vacant from September 11th. I was honored to get Billy McGinn's lieutenant spot back in Squad 18. So it was pretty for me pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I love hearing stories like that from individuals, leaders that were like that, because people really have no clue the impact that those good leadership qualities has throughout, future generations, because,
Yeah.
you learn things from them, and you taught people underneath you, and they'll teach people, and it just continues on. And those are the true attitudes that, need to be having the fire service.
And you got it that you wanted to do a good job because that's you always wanted to do that, but also you don't want to let your bosses down. You don't want to let
Hmm.
your coworkers down. And in this job we all rely on each other. And you never want to be seen as the one that either the weak link, or the one that doesn't care, or you want
Hmm.
to you know uh, you want to you don't want to let anybody down.
So you've been in this New York City Fire Department for 34 years now. Was there ever a moment early on in your career where you thought, I'm not cut out for this"? Anything that ever happened?
No, I mean, you know, everybody looks for a challenge, but there wasn't time. I mean, there was time, as I've gotten promoted, where you're like, oh, it may be in a different, in some of the jobs where you're like, oh, I don't know about this, but not because of the fire duty, right? Because of because of the nonsense that we all have to deal with, as you move, right? Become a lieutenant and a captain. And we are very good at promoting ourselves out of uh, positions and spots that we absolutely love. But that's part of the job, where you're on the captain's list and you're a lieutenant, and they call your
Hmm.
number, and we don't get to pick the time. They call your number and you go, and you start it over again, where you're going to we move people. When you get promoted, you move out of the borough that you were working in. We want you working with different people in a different firehouse. And so you wind up going to a place that you don't know anybody, and you got to start all over again. And you eventually figure it out, and learn to love where you're working there.
Yeah. So a lot of transitions you have to go through when you promote. Um, what? Tell me about your first ever fire. Do you remember that? What was
Yeah.
happening? What was going on?
Yeah, so it was a night tour, uh, and it was July. So I think I was in the firehouse 3 weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks, and about 7 or 8 o'clock, and was we were first due, and I had the nozzle few about 20 blocks from the firehouse, and kitchen fire, and on the second floor of like garden apartments, 2-story garden apartments. And nice, easy, routine fire. The truck got the door, and We went in about 10 feet in the kitchen, and quick, easy knockdown. And something that's kind of funny about this is the woman that lived there was in the shower, and she's taking a shower and her apartment's on fire. So they're doing the truck's doing the search, and they find her in her bathroom, not realizing what's going on in the rest of the apartment. So kind of kind of funny, but
Yeah.
yeah, nice. My introduction and the way I've had with most of my positions and ranks were kind of got eased into it. And, you contrast that with some other guys who's, whether as a firefighter or a new lieutenant or chief, how their first week or their first run was, some catastrophe, some,
Hmm.
fourth or fifth alarm where they, lost a few buildings, which, happens. Uh, we have a proby class graduating in a couple of weeks, and some of for a couple of them, their first fire is going to be, something, something absolutely crazy, and
Yeah.
we hope to ease everybody in, but that doesn't always happen.
How many fires does the city average per day?
We average about 7 working fires a day,
Oh,
and
wow.
that would include everything from a one room fire to to a fourth or fifth alarm. We
Hmm.
had last week, Monday morning and Tuesday morning, we started the day with 5 alarm fires, one in the Bronx, and then on Monday in the Bronx, and Tuesday morning in Queens. And that, for me, that makes a long day when you're,
Hmm.
getting a call at, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and, you got to make the ride to the fire. And, now when the fire's all out and all our guys are, are going home,
Hmm.
I'm, you know, I'm heading down to headquarters for the day. So, um, but it's great to be out there to see all our guys. Uh, but we average seven, like 6.7, 6.8 fires a day. Christmas Day was especially busy for us. We had 17 fires, including two third alarms and a second alarm that were almost simultaneous. The We had a third alarm in Queens and a second alarm in Brooklyn going at the same time. And then when the first third alarm in Queens, was under control, about 50 blocks away, there was another third alarm in Queens. So a lot of those units left the one fire and went to the other. And
Yeah.
that's rare, but not unheard of. And that's there are a few things better than going from fire to fire. That's that's one of the things you really like.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens there a lot. In my career, I can probably count on one hand when that's happened to me.
Yeah.
Um, talking about when you became chief of the department, what surprised you the most, whether it be something like a duty you didn't know was part of, or just a certain aspect of the job?
Just how difficult it was to get some things done. Even what would seem something easy. We and the problem is, so because we're so big. Uh, on the fire side, 11,000. 43, 4,400 on the EMS side, and well, not even just getting something stuff, uh, getting things done, just getting messages down and throughout the department is so difficult. We have department orders that we publish a couple of times a week. We have a homepage. We have various different ways to share information, but what we don't have is a way to make sure that everybody gets that information and understands it. And I would imagine that this is a problem for most large organizations. In the firehouse, so we can have an engine and a ladder. So you'd have about 60 or so people that are assigned there. Our EMS stations, could have 100, 150 people. Uh, and how do we make sure that every one of them, has gotten the message? The officers at their workstations have access to the computer. In the firehouse and EMS station, their job is not to sit at a computer. The firefighters and our EMTs and paramedics. Uh, so in a firehouse, you'll have one computer that all the firefighters can share, and an EMS station the same. And their job is not to be there. So it's that's probably the biggest surprise that not even surprised, but just something to learn that we have that issue and have not been able to solve it yet.
That makes complete sense because even at my small department, memos slip through the cracks, and some stations don't look at them or don't read them. So yeah, I can see that that is a huge problem. Um,
And we try to have, and this is something that Tom Richardson, who was the chief of department, chief of operations during COVID, he had started with having WebExes directly with the field, so that our people can hear us say, talk about what we have going on, and hear it from all. And what we've gotten to do is record those and distribute, email the recording out so everybody can, the folks that weren't working, or if they were working, maybe they were out on a run, so they can hear and participate. And even when we say stuff out loud and broadcast it to the entire department, not everybody gets the message. And a week or two later, we'll get a question about it. Hey, is this true? And yeah, it's true. We announced it to the whole department, and it's you know, uh, it's an issue. And then you at times you give people a cell phone, a department cell phone, and well, they're you know thinking that we're going to try to track them or know what they're doing. So then they don't use it, or they keep it in their locker when they're not working, and kind of defeats the purpose. But um, you know,
oh man, that's interesting.
yeah.
Um, so you're in charge of thousands and thousands of people. What's the hardest decision you've ever had to make that affected thousands of firefighters?
The hardest decision. That's a great question. You know, the toughest decisions that I think a fire chief has to make, was on the fire ground, when you're gonna get everybody out of a building, right?
Hmm.
And because firefighters take it personally when they've been engaged in a good firefight, and a chief shows up that hasn't been there the entire time, right?
Hmm.
Maybe we're a half hour, 40 minutes into it, and they've been there the whole time, and that chief, puts eyes on a situation and says, that's it. We're done, and we want everybody out. That's the toughest decision, because, and then that time from when you made the decision to get everybody out and they actually get out and you can confirm it, that is when, in my experience, time stands still, right? Because you made the
Hmm.
decision for whatever reason that the risk reward here isn't worth it. Uh, and you're just almost holding your breath that we can get everybody out before somebody gets hurt or something catastrophic happens. That's the toughest decision overall. Decisions that affect the entire department. um, the the all the easy decisions have already been made by the time it comes. I should say all the easy problems have been solved, by the time I get it. Um, you know, talking about policy and what we're going to allow, and the I would say the discipline up here. When you've got to decide, uh, somebody, there's been an incident, somebody's done something, how, what's the goal of the discipline or the punishment, and what are you trying to, what are you trying to do, and knowing that it affects somebody's life, somebody's livelihood, and somebody's finances, and
Yep.
but on the same note, you've got to make sure and hold people accountable, and protect the other people at work, protect the department, protect the brand,
Mm-hmm.
and send a message. And those, knowing that, the impact of that, that weighs on you a lot too. And those, I used to lose sleep over, decisions on the fire ground. I still go to a lot of fires, but I don't go to as many as I used to. Um, so the discipline determinations are what weighs on you a lot now.
Yeah.
That's what you lose sleep over these days.
Oh, I'd say so. When my dad retired, he retired as assistant chief of his department, and he would always talk to me about how much different it was than being, captain and sergeant stuff at his department. Did it take you a while to when you transitioned from that firehouse role to administrative staff to just like personally like accept that like difference?
Yeah, we get very good at doing our old job, right? And then you've
Hmm.
got to realize that's not your job anymore. Somebody else has that, and now you have to, accept this new role. And when on and the positions above deputy chief, you're part of the executive staff. So the term we use is you're a staff chief, or you're coming on staff, and the a lot of what we used to laugh about in the firehouse sometimes takes us a few months to laugh about. We don't always think it's funny right away, and because you're out looking to you know protect the the agency, the city, everybody else on the job, and it's uh, but yeah, when you're in these roles, you have to realize that what message, uh, whether it's an action, a statement that somebody made, or what image is that projecting to to the rest of the city, to the people who we need to trust us to do our job.
Hmm.
Uh, so something that happens in a firehouse that might appear funny because now the whole world knows about it, could be terrible for for us as an agency.
Yes. No, I agree with that completely. We'll shift into a little bit lighter of a question. What's the best firehouse meal you've ever had in 31 years?
So we had I was covering captain working in a firehouse in Queens, uh, and they call us down for dinner, and the with the meals, I would imagine it's like this by you. The officers have the officers should have zero to say about the meal, right? Unless you're cooking it or buying it, the officers have zero to say. So you know sometimes you go out and the guys almost as a test and be, hey Cap, what do you want to eat tonight? And I said, you're not getting me on that, right? You're not.
Uh huh.
I'm not. Whatever you guys cook and whatever you guys are going to eat, I'm going to eat. So one night we get called down for dinner, and we had shark steaks, right? And we got a good number of guys that live on the water, that fish all the time. And the one guy saying, he goes, yeah, my cousin caught this morning. So this shark that we're eating for dinner, was swimming, you know, 12
Yeah.
hours ago, 18 hours ago, and wasn't necessarily a you know fish guy, but that
Hmm.
was one of the best meals you ever had. And you realize that sometimes when if you think you don't like fish, think about where the last time that fish was swimming in water, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
the times the fish we eat, it could be days or
Oh
longer,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But when you get something that fresh, it was incredible. And I just love telling that story. How it went from from the ocean to the firehouse kitchen table in about 15 hours.
That's interesting. Yeah, I need you to talk to my captain about officers not saying anything because I'm the cook at my station. I love to cook, and he always makes it known because he's not an onion guy. And every time we're at the grocery store, he's like, "Onions." I'm like, "Yeah,
and,
I don't. I'm still going to use onions, even though
and
he complains about it. I'm the guy
well,
cooking."
that and what we would do is, if you don't like onions and you're going to tell us you don't like onions, well, you might get some more. You might get extra onions. So
Yeah, we
you
we
know.
had a battalion chief that hated them, and I would dice him up so small he would never know, and he'd never say anything.
you our guys, and the joke is, when you're a new officer somewhere and you're getting to know people, you make sure to tell them that you absolutely hate steak, right? And maybe they'll make you that, all the time. But the uh, if you're not going to cook the meal, and you're not gonna or pay for the meal, buy the meal, right?
Mhm,
Then officers, and we have a tradition in the fire department that when you're going on before you go on vacation, you either buy the meal or you throw money toward the meal. And
mhm,
what I had normally done is, when I was a lieutenant or captain, working in a single company, on the way into work that night, you stop and you buy the meal. And if you're
mhm.
going to bring the meal in and buy it, the guys will cook whatever. And
Oh, yeah.
it was that's a nice little tradition. That's how you make sure that you get to eat what you want to eat. But that gets expensive if you're buying the meal all the time. And
Yeah.
if you happen to get a meal that maybe isn't the greatest, you never say anything about it. And
Uh-huh.
because the guys can complain about the meal, but the officer and certainly the chief cannot. And
Yeah.
I had worked in a place one time, and they're of course trying to get you. They had lunch that was maybe a little unique and not something I had had before. And that night, I had worked there the day tour and then the night tour, and the firefighters had changed, so it was a different crew working the night tour, and all they were talking about was what they had heard about lunch, and they were asking me, Chief, that we heard that lunch was terrible, and I said, No, I thought it was great. I ate everything. And because if you give in, they're gonna then turn it around to say, yeah, the chief was complaining about the meal that he got in the firehouse. So, and we're not going to do that.
Yeah. I tell new guys all the time, I'm like, you need to learn how to cook because that's a quick way to get the guys to like you. My very first day, I told because I worked at a steakhouse before I got on the fire department,
Oh wow.
and I made ribeyes for everybody and all that, and I stayed at that station for a while, so we'll just say that they kept me there. But speaking on firehouse traditions, what's one firehouse tradition you hope never disappears?
The kitchen, the firehouse kitchen table, right? And we like to say that we've solved the problems of the world at the firehouse kitchen table. And when I was a lieutenant, we have the way our firehouses are. Most firehouses have an engine and a ladder in them, and then we have a lot of firehouses that are a single engine, and we have a handful of firehouses that are a single ladder. Where I was an officer was mostly at a single company. So we would do roll call at the kitchen table, right? It's the officer and five firefighters. and you would sit there and uh, I would share information, go over the riding list, who's doing what today or tonight, what do we have to do, what we're going to do for drill, and you just you get you guys to sit there and you have good conversation, and it goes from the latest fires they had to sometimes guys the issues at home and problems they have, and but that kitchen table in the firehouse, and it didn't matter if you were the new guy or the proby or the chief, that you could sit down and have great discussion, and whether it was at roll call or over a cup of coffee or during one of the meals. I remember one time I was a deputy, and one of my boys. I have three boys, and he had gotten himself into a little trouble at school on a school trip, and you come to work, you're trying to figure this stuff out and work it out, and you're all beat up, and you're feeling down, and so we're having dinner that night, and one of the guys said, Chief, what's going on? You don't seem your normal self. So I tell him, and another guy says, oh yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
you think that's bad? Let me tell you my story. And he told me a similar story that, of course, was much worse. And right away, you start to feel better, and you think you got problems, and then the moral of it from him is, yeah, and everybody's fine, right? It's something that you deal with, and you get past it, and you're going to be fine. But that tradition of the kitchen table, and even now when I visit firehouses. I don't, uh, when I call them and tell them I'm coming, and when I get there, they'll be generally lined up at the front of the firehouse, the front of the apparatus, and
Yeah.
they probably had to run around and find their shirts and find the right shoes and all of that to put on. But we'll say hello to them there. But when we go to talk, I want to sit in the kitchen, and that's
Yeah.
that's the place that all that learning and information sharing and everything gets
Mm-hmm.
gets done, and that's the the heart of that of each firehouse, and so many of our firehouses are so different, but the idea of that kitchen table is all the mismatched chairs, and these things that we probably took some of them out of the garbage that somebody was throwing out because they looked good, and
Mm-hmm.
is but
Yeah.
it's great. The firehouse kitchen table is such a great place.
You talked about you brought up probies there for a little bit. Now, if there's an instance of this, don't have to tell me. I understand, but have you ever been humbled by a proby at any point in your career?
you know I probably have, but out I mean, we have like West Point graduates that come on our job, right? We've got a couple of Navy SEALs. We got fighter pilots, right?
Yeah.
I haven't done anything nearly close to that, right? I graduated college and at 21 and came on this job. So,
Hmm.
if you think as because you've been on this job for so long, or because of whatever rank you are, that makes you better or whatever. I mean, we've got what some of our guys do and what they've had in either other professional certifications or licenses. I mean, it's humbling looking at their resume, and you're like, you know.
Hmm.
So, for example, right when I was the chief of special operations, we had changed the procedure for getting into the special operations companies, which are our rescue companies, our squad companies, and the hazmat companies, and we required them to submit uh, an application, but they also had to submit a resume and things. And you start reading this, and you're like, this guy's got 6 years on the job, and look at what they do on the side, and whether it's
Hmm.
it's military experience or business that they own. I mean, we we've got a guy that's like a fishing boat captain in Alaska, and he'll figure out his time off, and we got guys that are these crazy mountain climbers, and just do
Hmm.
a lot of this very very impressive stuff. So if you get uh, humbled by a proby, um, it's not uncommon, and even um, you just should know to respect the you know you got to respect your probies. That Give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, you can't be surprised by but why what they've done before they've come here. We got
Yeah.
we've got guys that were professional athletes, and every year we have a police fire hockey game, which we sell out at the UBS Arena where the Islanders play, and both police and fire have guys that were Division 1 hockey players, professional hockey players, and
Yeah.
um, it's all of that is pretty humbling. So to answer the original question, yeah, you look at their resumes, it's very humbling. What some of these guys have done.
Yeah, I asked that question because I've witnessed tons of times older guys will get proved wrong by a pro V, whether it be training or something, and they'll double down and they'll go with the wrong way to do it because they don't want to admit fault and admit that a younger guy knew how to do it better than them, and that's just a problem I feel like in the fire service, But
One of the problems that we've always had is, in the firehouse, that just because you're the bigger guy, you got more time with it, you can talk louder, doesn't make you right. Sometimes that
yes,
new guy, and especially, you look at now compared to 25 or 30 years ago, how much information people can have right
hmm
at their fingertips. Right. Years ago, I used to, I had bought Vinnie Dunn's books, and I used to read them, and I read them before I got on the job. And, there was information, but it was limited. Right. And now, I mean, it's virtually unlimited what you can see. Years ago, finding videos of firefighters arriving at a fire, to see what people actually did in the early stages of a fire was was virtually unheard of or impossible. You had to be actually riding with a company that arrived there, and even then you didn't get the whole picture. Now you go online and you can see fire after fire of companies pulling up and see their initial actions, and um, uh, you know very uh, informative and very educational, these the videos that are out there now.
yeah. Chief, I just got two more questions for you, real quick. Number one, first off, have you seen Rescue Me, the TV show?
Yes. So my wife and I used to watch it, and you're like, come on. And we knew some of the guys on there. There were a couple of guys that were city firefighters that were on there, and that's the one with Dennis Leary, right?
Yes. Uh huh.
Right. So, and Dennis Leary and his foundation are huge supporters
Mm-hmm.
of the fire service, and,
Yes.
and of FDNY. But it's the same the same critique that a lot of people have. It's that every firehouse has you know has a guy that's a little that's a little eccentric, right? And in Rescue Me, they put all of these guys in the same place, and it's some of it you can say was accurate, and some of it was was Hollywood doing their thing. Um, But
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What does Hollywood always get wrong about
oh yeah,
fires
it's.
in New York
I
City?
mean, and anybody that's been in a fire knows that if it's a good fire, first of all, you can't see anything, and you're not standing on your feet,
Hmm.
right? You're crawling around, wondering what the hell type of room you're in, and then I mean, how many times did the smoke does the smoke clear and you go, wow, I had no idea it was or you realize you were in the kitchen and this place was huge and you thought you thought you did you thought you did a search of the whole room and you just missed a doorway or something that opened up into a much bigger area. So um but that's not exciting, right? A blank screen and muffled voices and hearing all of that doesn't make for good, for good TV. So, but yeah, the how fire spreads, what it looks like, um, how sprinklers activate, you've got a whole industry that is that opposes fire sprinklers, right? Which we know save lives, right? But you've got a whole
Hmm.
group of people that oppose that because they think that if you hold a lighter to one of them, that every head's going to go off, right? Because some knuckleheads in Hollywood,
Yeah.
did that in a movie, right? And we know, we know, we know sprinklers save lives. I mean, there's no
Hmm.
a properly operating sprinkler system saves lives, and there's no debating that. And yeah, I know it's expensive, but losing a few thousand people every year in fires is expensive as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. My final question I want to ask you: when all is said and done, and you retire from this job, what has this job given you that nothing else could have?
The sense of accomplishment and taking care of people. It's when and I see it a lot more now that when I do go to fires and emergencies that uh, I'm not I'm at the command element and not involved with the actual operations, but watching our people and when they get the opportunity to uh, when their actions directly leading that result in saving somebody's life, right? That we gave them the training, we
Hmm.
gave them the education, we put them either we put them in the place or they put themselves in a place. We had one of our paramedics the other day on the subway, uh, and he's on the subway and he notices somebody collapse and he goes over and person's in cardiac arrest. He immediately starts CPR. People call 911. We get our other units there, and this person is alive right now. If he doesn't take that action, maybe there's too long of a delay, to and this person doesn't survive. But because of that simple act of our guy getting involved, and we made a big deal of it on social media and all of that, which we should. I mean, we do an awful lot every day, and the ultimate goal. I mean, we swore an oath to protect life and property, and protecting life, that's you've got a very very small window to save somebody's life in that case. And when that happens, it's the greatest thing, and you want our people to feel that and realize that. So everything that I can do and that we can do to prepare our people, and when they're in that place and in that position, that they are able to act and impact somebody's life. When at a fire, when somebody gets rescued
Yeah.
and they're in cardiac arrest or they need rescue breathing, and our guys do it, and then you hear that a day or two later that the people are conscious and alert in the hospital, that if we didn't get there and do our
Hmm.
thing, um, it wouldn't be that way. And when you get to the scene of something, whether it's a fire, a medical emergency, it is to watch our people go to work. And that's another thing they get wrong, at least from the way we do it here in New York, that they get wrong on TV, right? An ambulance pulls up and you've got somebody that needs their help. They just, they just swarm and go to work. Fire truck pulls up and stops at a building fire. They get off and everybody goes to their position. They don't have a huddle. They don't stand there and figure, oh, you do this. Everybody goes.
Mm-hmm.
We know based on the type of building and your order of arrival, if you're first or second, we know where you should be, right? And people are moving to get their position covered, and it's if you happen to be there early enough, it's like watching a symphony, and you get you're as the chief, you're watching them perform. You're listening on the radio for reports, and you're also watching the building and processing all of that information. But preparing our people for to be in the position and act that you can just like a wind up toy or car, where you wind it up and you just let it go. And the two greatest examples of that for in my career that shows that our people are so well trained and experienced is September 12th, 2001, when the top of the department had been decimated. We don't know how many people are missing. There's an awful lot going on in Lower Manhattan, but we still have to staff firehouses and respond to incidents throughout the city. And the sun came up on September 12th, and the firehouse doors went
Mm-hmm.
up, and our guys went out and did their job. They figured it out. They figured out staffing. They had enough people come to work. They could send people to the trade center, and and fires went out. And then on October 29th, 2012, that was the night that Hurricane Sandy hit. We had high water throughout
Mm-hmm.
throughout the city. We had multiple fires that involved multiple buildings that on any night would have been the biggest story. Any other night would have been, the front page of the paper, and you would have had, everybody there up to the chief of department. Some of these fires had a couple of engines and company officers, commanding them, because we were stretched so thin and you couldn't get people. We had an off-duty firefighter rescue like 12 people from a
Mm-hmm.
burning house on a surfboard, because the water was so high and they were stuck in the house. The house was on fire. I mean,
Wow.
just our guys, when you let them free, they just do incredible stuff. And we that night we also had that fire in Breezy Point, where we lost 114 houses, and you had firefighters operating in water up to their unknown caller, operating in water up to their waist, trying to save what they could. So
Mm-hmm.
our people do great work, and being able to contribute to that and prepare them, knowing that when they've got a job to do, they are going to do it. And I guess I would take that, and knowing if they know that the role that I played in that, and making sure that they're prepared to go and face whatever, properly equipped,
Mm-hmm.
properly trained. Uh, that's I'm good with that.
That's great. Well, Chief Esposito, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot, and hopefully the listeners did as well. As always, guys, new episodes every other Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern. Just a little salt, and we'll see you all on the next one.